We'll start with the prayers. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vat Pranaschakshushrotramatho Balam Indriyani Chasarvani Sarvam Brahmayupunoshidam Maham Brahma Nirakuriyam Mama Brahma Nirakarod Anirakarnamastu Anirakaranam me astu Tadatmani nirateye Upanishatsu dharmaste Te mai santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are studying the Keno Upanishad, which belongs to Samaveda. The Shanti mantra I chanted now belongs to Samaveda. We have seen in general why we study Upanishads last week. It was a brief introduction to the study itself, the spiritual study of Upanishads. And what we covered was that we all start with Tattvabodha, Atmabodha, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and then Brahma Sutra. That is the 5-step program for the spiritual study in Advaita Vedanta. In between, we can do many other texts, but these are the primary texts. Prasthana Trayam means Gita, Upanishad, and Brahma Sutra. These three are a must. To prepare for the study of these three, we do Atmabodha and Tattvabodha. We are still in the introduction stage, and I will continue with where we stopped last week. In the Shastra, Atma, which is the spiritual essence in all of us, is generally compared to two things. One is Akasha, the space, and the second thing is light principle. Akasha is mainly dealing where we have to stress on the pervasive nature of Atma. The light principle is stressed where we have to talk about the consciousness principle. And then we saw that without the cotton, there cannot be any cloth. Normally, the eyes will see a cloth made up of patterns. It will ignore the basic essence, which is the cotton. So similarly, when we look at a material body and mind, we always look at it superficially. We don't look at the essence behind the body. We all know that our body is sentient. It is able to perceive different sense objects, and it is able to react, give a response to the sense objects. So there is a transaction going on during our waking time. There is a transaction going on between the body and the world. You don't see a transaction going on between a dead body and the world, but you see a transaction going on between a live body and the world. What makes the difference between the two is the subject matter of Vedanta. And Vedanta says that the difference is that consciousness with the mind exists in a live body. That consciousness with the mind is generally called as the jiva, the indweller in the body. And this jiva takes birth after birth in different bodies according to the law of karma. That is what we are going to see now in this session. What is this law of karma? And how does it express in life? According to Veda, there are two parts of the Veda. Veda Anta and Veda Purva. Veda Purva means Karma Kanda. Veda Anta means Jnana Kanda. The entire Veda Purva Bhaga, that means the earlier portion of the Veda, deals with rituals, deals with benefits of rituals, deals with upasana. What are the benefits of upasana? All that is dealt in the Veda Purva Bhaga. There is a connection between Veda Purva and Veda Anta. This is the topic which Shankaracharya discusses as Sambandha Bhashyam in Keno Upanishad commentary. The first section of the Bhashyam is Sambandha Bhashyam. What is the Sambandha? What is the relationship between Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda? You should know the difference, and you should also know that it is a step-by-step study. You cannot suddenly jump into Jnana Kanda without the Karma Kanda portion. This life is not an end in itself, but it is a little incident in the eternal existence of each jiva. Our normal experience is that jivas are coming and they are going, but they don't know that they return back. They return back. The jiva which goes out of this body returns back. That is the knowledge we get from the Veda. And each ego, each jiva lives its special life of joys and sorrows. See, your life of joy and sorrow is different than your parents' joys and sorrows. Your life and life of joy and sorrow is different than your children's joy and sorrow. They come into being in a certain environment. So what is the end result of our life? It is only joy and sorrow. If you take our whole life and ask the question, what did I experience in life? I earned money, I got education, but ultimately, what is the result? I was either happy or I was sad during my life. And the life again goes on. See, that is the way our experience is. When you look at life from near, like a painting from near, it will look illogical or unrhythmic. But when you see it from a slight distance, you will see the entire picture. Suppose you go in a helicopter and see the city, you get a bird's eye view. Now that vision is different than seeing a park in a city. So similarly, Veda says, don't look at only karma kanda portion. Come out of it. Coming out of it is the spiritual study. There is a special world in which I live my own inner experiences, and there is a world outside the inner experiences. That is what Veda is trying to reveal to us. We are all caught up in something called as Jiva Srishti. This was the discussion in chapter 4 of Panchadasi by Swami Vidyaranya. What he said was that normally there are two visions we all see in the world. One is, I am experiencing joy and sorrow. I have my own life's experiences. This is called as Jiva Srishti. Ishvara Srishti means what? It is the general creation. The sun, the moon, the stars, the plants, mountains, rivers. This is all Ishvara Srishti. I have no role to play in that. I am a part of the Ishvara Srishti. But what is the vision of a jnani? That is what you get from Panchadasi. The author there is a great teacher. He says jnani's drishti is neither a Jiva Srishti or Ishvara Srishti, but it is the vision of a Sakshi. I am a Sakshi to the world. The world continues because of karma. That is what you should learn here. The law of karma is the background on which the entire karma kanda survives. What is this law of karma? You should remember three words connected with the law of karma. These are technical words. The first word is sanchita. Sanchita means it is a treasure house of all your past experiences in all the janmas, in all the births. Then the second technical word is prarabdha karma. What is prarabdha karma? Prarabdha karma is whatever I am going to enjoy in this birth, which is called as the ripened sanchita. The sanchita karma is the total. But out of the total picture, you take a part of it and you live through in this life. That is called as prarabdha karma. Fruits allotted in one's life from the ripened sanchita karma. That means you suppose you take a tree and you see that the tree gives me fruit now. You have sowed the seed, you see this fruit now. That fruit is called as prarabdha karma. It is like an arrow which is already shot. You cannot stop it. So throughout our life, we are going through what is called our life's experiences are what is called as bhokta. I am a bhokta. I am an experiencer of different experiences. That is what is called prarabdha. Then the third technical term in the law of karma is called as agami. Most of you who have done the Tattva Bodha know all this, but I'm just repeating it for those who are newcomers. Agami means what? In this world, I have done some karma. I have done some actions, good actions. I have given a big donation for Annadanam. I have given a big donation to build a temple. These are all punyam. But I don't get the benefit of it in this birth itself. There is a time lag between karma and phalam. So whatever I have gathered in this birth, it is added to the sanchita. And then when I take the new birth, the new prarabdha will come from the total of agami and sanchita. So that is how law of karma is explained. The Lord gives us the limited freedom to live in this life. We all have free will. Normally, when you discuss the law of karma, you automatically get a question in your mind. Is everything decided by the law of karma, or do I have a free will? The answer to this question is we all have a limited free will. We all have an intellect, buddhi. The buddhi is a determining faculty in us. It can decide whether to go after good action or instinctively follow whatever our vasana is. Bhagavad Gita makes this very clear. Keno Upanishad makes it very clear. Keno Upanishad says the path of good is Shreyaha. That means it will purify my mind. Satsang, like this talk, for example, this is called satsang. We get full satisfaction at the end of Shreya. Why do we get full satisfaction? Because whatever we follow, it purifies my mind, it makes my mind clear, I gain peace of mind. Nobody at the end of the class will say, no, I was very, very agitated at the end of the class. Everybody will say, I had a good peace of mind. Then the second part, this is from Keno Upanishad. These two words are used in Keno Upanishad, Preya. What is Preya? Preya is mainly as per our Raga Dvesha. For example, going to a cinema, going to a cricket match, these are all as per our likes and dislikes. We do get partial satisfaction, but there's no fulfillment in the mind. That is the difference between Shreyaha and Preyaha. If I don't fulfill my desires, what happens? I get angry. Now, this anger can be dealt in two ways. One is you suppress the anger. No, I will not think about this anger. Again, what will happen? It will burst out again because you have hidden it. You have covered it with something. Or you say, no, it is because of my prarabdha I'm becoming angry. So what happens is you are just covering with a lid and saying that this is the way my mind is. The second way is to divert the anger, the energy. You see, anger is nothing but energy which is bustling out. It is Rajoguna. If you are able to spend that Rajoguna in a satsang or chanting, in some other means, you are sublimating that anger. You don't feel sorrowful or you're not repentant about it. So these are all different forms in which we go through our prarabdha karma. So our life is nothing but we are a bhokta dealing with bhogya vastu. The objects of the five sense objects is nothing but bhogya vastu. Now mind is ordered by a set of impressions, which is called as vasanas. And that is expressed as the transactions in life. Now, prarabdha is basically because of the self-effort which we have put in the past. See, whenever we see action, our mind always goes to find out why? Why is this? Why am I acting like this? What Vedanta tells us is, like you have a seed for a tree, like you have cotton for the cloth, which is the cause of the cloth, like for a child, the father and the mother are the cause. Similarly, for the posterior world, there is an interior cause, and that cause is nothing but prarabdha karma. This world, total world is basically called as prapancha. All the prarabdha karma of the beings in the world add up to become the prarabdha karma of creation. So this Srishti is nothing but it is a result of the prarabdha karma of the different jivas in this universe. Then there is a new srishti, a new creation, which will come as per the sanchita and agami of the future jivas. So this karma kanda portion links up it explains to us our current experiences. We all have purushartha to modify our present situation and create a new world in the future through our self-effort. For example, you find a log which floats in a river. Suppose you see a log floating in a river. Now, the log floating in a river is compared to the prarabdha of the body-mind complex. Okay, that is a simple example. Suppose you fit a motor in the log. What happens? You are giving direction for the log or the boat to move in a certain way for a certain period of time. So similarly, our discriminating capacity, our intellect is like that motor. We all have a small motor in us which will give us the benefit of changing our direction in life. It is not that all of us have to follow our instincts. Bhagavad Gita clearly says that between a thought and an action, there is a small gap. If you're able to notice that gap and become aware of that gap, you will be able to change the direction. This is where Lord Krishna teaches us in chapter 3, chapter 4, 5 of the Bhagavad Gita. So, the past has no existence in the current. Past is mingling with the future, and that is what becomes the present. There is no existence in the presence. It is always a floating time. See, time is not permanent. It doesn't remain eternal. Whereas Atma, which is the cause of time, is eternal. That is what Veda says. Time by itself is born. It is an effect. It is a product. But the substratum of time is Atma. So, we are not slaves to the body, mind, and prarabdha, but also we do not have full freedom by living in the body. There is limited freedom, but there is a way to come out of that entanglement, which is called as moksha. This law of karma explains to us that we are the architects of the future. I do karma today, I do action today, I will get the benefit either now or in the future. So I am the architect of my own future. That is the way we should lead our life. So in the debate of fate and free will, what is the final conclusion? This is the final conclusion. Live in the present, do your duties, and remember, while doing the duty, you keep in mind that I have complete freedom to act in the present. Therefore, take the path of Shreyaha and act. All the time, every moment of our life, take the future in our own hands and say that I have a free will to lead the good life, and also the Lord has given us this study of Upanishads to teach us how I can come out of this law of karma. That is the subject matter of Jnana Kanda. Upanishads is Veda Anta portion. Vid means to know. Veda comes from the root vid. We know that there are certain forces in life, gravitational force, the energy behind the whole creation. These are all eternal in life, but they are relatively eternal. They are not absolute truth. That absolute truth is the subject matter of Upanishads. Vedas are divided into three parts: the mantra portion, Brahmana portion, Aryanka portion. What does the mantra portion deal with? It deals with glories of the Creator, hymns sung in praise of the Creator, the Ishvara. Basically, there are secret potencies hidden in this universe. And they are responsible for our life. So when the Vedic society sung in different forms the nature of the Lord. That is what is called as the mantra portion. Then comes the Brahmanas. In Brahmana portion, it teaches us how to do rituals in life, yajnas, how to perform big fire rituals. Then the third section is called as Aryanka. Aryanka means the Upanishad portion. What we study in a forest, we study in a relaxed fashion. If I want to experience something higher in life, I go through the Upanishad and I learn to dwell on my own nature. Keno, there are different Upanishads which fall into these three categories. You will find that Upanishads can come from Brahmana portion also. Keno Upanishad comes from the Brahmana portion of Samaveda. When we study the Upanishads, we need a certain mental framework. And that mental framework is what is given to us is the benefit of following a religious life. The energy which is gained by the mind to remain focused, to remain concentrated, and study the Vedas with the purity of mind. That is what is the benefit of religious life. We all don't follow the Vedic culture today, but we follow the religious culture. For example, we light a lamp at home. These are all the agama karmas. And these will help us to come to the study of Veda. The Panchakoshas, Shariratrayam and the Avastatrayam, these are the indicators, these are the milestones which are used by the Vedanta to reveal the truth of Atma. Whenever we study in Tattvabodha, what have we studied? The essence, the most important mantra in Tattvabodha is what? Atma is beyond the three states of waking, dream, and sleep, beyond the gross subtle and causal bodies. It is beyond the five koshas. That is the most important mantra of Tattvabodha. That is the mantra which is the basis of all study of Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and Brahma Sutra. So here also we remember that in the first 8 chapters of that Talvakara branch of Samaveda belonging to the Brahmana portion, rituals and upasanas are taken up. Why do we take upasana? What is the benefit of meditations? One of the most beautiful meditations which is taught for a spiritual student is prana upasana. Upasana means sitting down quietly, closing your eyes, and understanding, or in your own mind, experience the glory of prana. It is this prana which vitalizes the body. It keeps the entire community of living beings vibrant. The prana shakti, without this prana shakti, the digestion in the body, the circulation in the body, the breathing in the body, the pancha pranas, they will not be able to function. The mind requires the energy of the prana to survive, to think. Very beautiful example was given in Chandogya Upanishad. The student went to the teacher and said, how do you say annam is the karanam for my mind? The teacher said, go and fast for 15 days. Take only water. Completely fast, no food for 15 days. On the 15th day, the disciple came back in front of the teacher and told him, I have fasted for 15 days. I'm surviving. I'm able to live. Then the teacher said, can you chant this Samaveda mantra from this section to this section? Then the boy said, I am not able to remember that. I can't chant. He was a brilliant student, but he couldn't. So the mind depends on prana shakti. The mind depends on the ahara. So without the food, what happened was the body became weak. The mind became weak. So this is the type of upasana which you do. And one thing we should remember is there is perfection in this world. Don't forget that cosmos is infinite by nature. We cannot put a stop to the end of cosmos. But there is order in this universe. And that is what you meditate to sharpen the mind, purify them. What do you mean by sharpening the mind? To stay in a particular thought process for a length of time is called as focusing ability. In Yoga Shastra, it is called as Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Three technical terms in Yoga Shastra. Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, coming back to this life process, one of the very important examples given in the Veda is that we are all searching in life for something which we already possess. We already possess the peace of mind, but we search in the world every part of the world we search for peace and happiness. Like a musk deer, it runs miles in the forest, seeking what is the source of that musk scent, which is coming in the body. It doesn't know that it is coming from its own glands. Similarly, we are all searching for Atma outside in the universe without knowing that there is Atma hidden in our own body, mind complex. So the entire Vedanta looks at life in a different way with a different vision. That vision is what we are going to study in Keno Upanishad. By the end of the Upanishadic study, you will all get a different vision. It is different than what we already know as life. Shanti mantras in Keno Upanishad, normally there are two types of Shanti mantras. From next week, we will chant this second chant, this mantra, Sahana Bhavatu. There are two Shanti mantras in Keno Upanishad. This Shanti mantra is a very famous Shanti mantra. We can chant either this or the next one. I have already told you last week what is the second Shanti mantra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now here is a very simple mantra. Whenever there is a study going on, it is a dialogue between the student and the teacher. This mantra is a prayer to the Lord, and it says, let there be peace between me and my teacher. And let me have a team spirit for study of the Upanishads. It is a joint effort. The teacher, the guru, uses the scriptures to reveal the truth, not what he has, not from his own mind, but from what the Veda is teaching. And in order for me to learn, I must have Shraddha in the teacher, faith in the teacher and in the guru. That is what comes out in this mantra. The second Shanti mantra I have taken up for analysis in the first session, the last session. This is what we chanted today. Om Apyayantu Mamangani. This is a prayer to take care of my body, my fitness of the body. So the sadhaka, he prays for the physical fitness, psychological fitness, and the spiritual fitness. These are the three things which he is asking in this prayer. And then he says, by some mistake also, let me not neglect that there is something called as Brahman, which is the subject matter of the Veda, of the Upanishads. I don't know what is Brahman, but I should not say, no, there is nothing called as Brahman. In the beginning, what we all should say is, if the Guru says there is something called as Atma, there is something called as God, something called as Brahman, there is some spiritual essence in this whole universe, our starting point should be, I have faith in the Veda. Let me not deny the existence of God. That is the prayer in this Apyayantu Mamanga. Then the last portion is, I may sometimes forget But let that God not forget that I want to reach him. Let that God not spurn me. It is a prayer. Oh Lord, please take care of me. That is what we all pray in the temples. With this introduction, now let me go to the first verse of the Keno Upanishad. Keno Upanishad, in this presentation of mine, I am going to take up this presentation. See, there are slightly different versions of Keno Upanishad with different types of presentations. There are 34 verses which I am going to present. Some verses, it will be just a small, simple presentation. 34 verses are there in this presentation, divided into 4 chapters. First chapter, 8 mantras. Second chapter, 5 mantras. The third chapter is a story. I am not going to discuss all the complete 12 mantras of the third chapter. I'm going to give you a gist of it. You will understand it is not necessary to go through the full story in a verse form. The last one is the 4th chapter, 9 mantras. So 34 mantras is the entire Keno Upanishad. It is one of the primary Upanishads where the teaching is based on our experiences in life. And the teaching takes place in a dialogue form. I'm going to go through this presentation first, the way I have given you the notes. Then later on, I will give you some additional information which comes in Shankara Bhashyam. I will take that as a separate portion at the end of this presentation. Shankaracharya has written 2 commentaries on this Keno Upanishad. One is called as Pada Bhashyam, and the second is called as Vakya Bhashyam. Pada means words, and then Vakya means sentence. So he has written 2 commentaries on this. Both are very famous. And what I will be taking at the end of this presentation is Vakya Bhashyam. I'm writing the notes of that. Once it is ready, at the end of maybe I'll give you a Bhashyam, because that is a very profound teaching. I'm giving you a gist of that in this presentation, which is the first presentation, but you will find there are beautiful things which we will take up after you've understood what this whole preliminary discussion about Keno Upanishad, then you'll go a little bit deeper. The first verse, Kene Shitam Patati Preshitam Manaha. For those of you who are interested in chanting this word, learning to chant these verses, I am playing these verses at the beginning of the class. The chanting is from Swami Paramatmananda. Those of you who are interested, I will share with you the chanting shlokas, and you can practice to chant these shlokas in your own spare time. So, Kene Shitam Patati Preshitam Manaha. Kena Prana Prathama Praiti Yuktaha. Kene Shitam Vachimamam Vadanti. Chakshushodram Kau Devo Yunakti. First, I'll give you the word meaning. Then we will see what is the slightly deeper meaning. See, normally, okay, the first is the word meaning. Word meaning is what? We all experience in our life that this body is conscious. And at the same time, we have also seen a dead body which is not conscious. And we have experienced the world which is jadam. A stone is jadam. A wall is jadam, inert. What is it which makes a difference between a stone wall, the material nature of the universe, and a living body? That is the first analysis of a student. See, a student of Keno Upanishad is not a simple student. He is a very bright intellect. What is it? He knows that there is some factor, but he doesn't know fully about that factor. So the question the student is asking to his teacher is, it's a brilliant question. I would recommend all of you to meditate on this question. Like in Mundaka Upanishad, there was a question by the student. What is it by knowing which I will know the entire cosmos? That was the student of Mundaka Upanishad. Brilliant question. There is one thing in the universe. If I know that, I know the entire universe. Similarly, the question of Keno Upanishad. What is the question? My mind is able to think of different objects in the world. What is the light in which I am able to think? Who is the director of this mind? Body is like an instrument, like a car. I come in the morning, I wake up, I get into it, I start driving the body. Is there a driver of this mind? How does the mind work? Does it have its own energy of consciousness? Or is it dependent on external factor called as consciousness? Is the mind active by itself? That is the first portion. Commanded by whom? This is the second portion, the second question. Who is the commander of this sense organs, of the prana? Second question is related to prana. The third question is related to the sense organs. All these three things, are they activated by themselves? Or is there an external impeller, instigator, activator? Is the question of the Keno student. See, body, the sense organs, this is what is the analysis which Shankaracharya takes up in the Bhashya. There are two types of activators. This is from Shankara Bhashya. He says the student is using two words here, Ishitam and Preshitam. The student is purposely using these two words. Preshitam means an active instigator. That means somebody is commanding me to do action. Therefore, I act. My mother tells me, go and bring some water, I act. That is a command. Through words, somebody expresses. That is active instigator. That is an active it is an active activator. There is a second possibility. What is the second possibility? Shankaracharya's brilliant mind gives a difference between an active activator and a passive activator. And the passive activator is the nature of Atma. So Shankaracharya says that in this world, there is some principle, spiritual principle, which is what is the passive activator of this world. Very important lesson. Right in the beginning, in the first verse, all of us get this knowledge of the spiritual essence in this body as well as in the entire creation. Our sense organs are limited by nature. I can't even hear what is happening, maybe say 100, 200 feet away from me. My ears are limited. My eyes are limited. I can't see more than maybe 100 feet, 200 feet clearly. So all my sense organs, the eyes, ears, nose, including the mind, is limited in nature. They do not have the capacity themselves to energize and experience the world. There is another spiritual principle which is called as Atma. So the answer to this question is what? Who is willing our director of the mind? It is Atma. Who is directing the pranas? It is the Atma. Who is the director of all the sense organs? It is the Atma. So that is what we get as the second verse. The first verse is student asks this question. The second verse is the teacher gives the answer. What principle makes our organs function? All of us should ask this question. All of us who are learning Vedanta should ask this question to ourselves, not to discuss with others. That is the starting point of our journey, spiritual journey. When you sit down in meditation, ask this question, my body is working, my sense organs, my mind is working, it can go into different parts of this world. I can suddenly think about my son, I can then switch off, then think about my office work, then switch off, think about my kitchen work, then switch off, think about what's happening in cricket match today, switch off, think about so many different things. What is this energy in this mind? The breathing process is going on from life to death continuously. See, when a car is stationary, you know that it is inert. But when a driver is there, it can run. Similarly, this body, it requires a driver. What is that driver? Who drives this body? Who drives this mind? Who drives this prana? Last week in the Q&A session, there was a question. Is the mind functioning because of vasana? Or is the mind functioning because of consciousness, Atma? The answer to that question is, if you look at it from the Dharma Shastra angle, which is the Karma Kanda angle, You will say it is because of vasana. Vasana is because of karma. That's it. That is the Dharma Shastra answer. That is a simple answer. But if you want a deeper answer, you come to Vedanta. Vedanta will teach us there is Atma which is responsible for the functioning of the mind. You are not wrong by saying Vasana is the one which is driving the mind. You're not wrong, but it is not a full answer. The complete answer is the substratum for the whole universe is a spiritual essence. It is a spiritual principle, and that is called as Shrotrasya Shrotram. It is the ear of the ear. That is the second verse. I'll come to that later. So the four questions which are asked is about Manaha, Pranaha, Vacham, and Chakshu Shotram. Manaha means what is the light in which I see my thoughts? It is not that external light coming from sunlight. That cannot illumine the thoughts inside my body. Sunlight can illumine the entire world outside, externally. But do you know your emotions? I am hungry, I'm thirsty, I am angry, I'm feeling jealous about some people. How do I know this? Either you will say the mind itself is conscious by nature, or there is an external consciousness principle. Shankaracharya beautifully analyzes and says, mind by itself doesn't have consciousness. Sense organs by themselves don't have consciousness. They are inert by nature. He goes step by step to describe why sense organs are not sentient by themselves. And then he gives spiritual logical reasons for that, which is there in the Bhashyam, which I will take it up later. I have mentioned about it last week also. A little bit I gave a glimpse of it. So let us continue now. So Manaha is coming and going. Mind is there in the waking state, but it becomes passive in the sleep state. But there is a Sakshi, there is a consciousness principle, which is the light of the mind. It never goes away. That is my real nature. That is the revelation of Keno. Similarly, Pranaha. I become conscious of this body when in the waking state. I'm not conscious of the body in the dream state and in the sleep state, this body. But prana is going on, it is keeping the body alive. But what is that by which I become conscious of the prana is the question. And how does the prana, who commands this prana? Ultimate commander of this prana is this consciousness, spiritual essence. Vacham. I speak throughout the day. For 1 hour, I continuously talk. Or you also speak in the office. You are a teacher. You can speak 6 hours in the school or in the college. You teach. What is the essence behind the speech? How do we utter these words? What is the energy behind the speech is the question of the Keno student. See how brilliant this question itself is. Similarly, the eyes and the ears. The ears are able to hear so many different types of sounds. You can even discriminate. This is a good music. This is not a good music. This is Western music. This is Indian classical music. How? The eyes can see different colors, different forms. All they all are impulses which are coming to the mind. But then what is the light of this perception? On what does this perception depend on? See, when you come to the spiritual science, this is the science. That is why, you see, these are not, it is not just accepting some principle and saying, okay, there is Atma and you all have to believe in Atma. No. A student of Vedanta is a questioning student. He needs answer for his intellect. Till the intellect is satisfied, he will never be satisfied and the intellect will never be at peace. So these are the 4 questions which he asks. And the student is impatient because he is not after the finite objects, finite joys. What is finite joy? I like an ice cream, but then if I take 10 ice creams, my joy goes away. So it's finite. If I see one movie, it's okay. If I see a movie, the same movie 100 times, my joy is gone. Simply, these are all finite in nature. The whole universe gives us only finite joy. But am I satisfied and fulfilled with the finite joys? No. That is the student's understanding. He has seen what can the world give. Pariksha Lokan, Keno Upanishad has this mantra, very beautiful mantra. He has examined all the joys and sorrows. Similarly, in Keno Upanishad, Nachiketa, a brilliant student who says, I have seen the entire, whatever you are going to give me as the world is no use because they're all ephemeral. So the ultimate question is, what is behind the mind, intellect, and this assemblage of the body? Organs are making up this body function, existing. What is behind them? And the answer to that question is the subject matter of the entire Keno. There is a lot of debate which happens, which comes about in the Bhashyam, which I will discuss maybe next week a little bit. I'll give you some gist. But basically, we must remember sense organs and the mind are made up of matter and they are insentient. Tattva teaches us they are all subtle in nature. The subtle body consists of Pancha Pranas, Pancha Jnana Indriyas, Pancha Karma Indriyas. These are all the subtle powers which are also made up of the 5 elements. But the only thing about the subtle body is it can reflect consciousness, it can borrow consciousness. That is the difference between Ishitam and Preshitam. What is Preshitam? Preshitam means directly activating. Ishitam means in the presence of something, the body, mind gets activated. In the presence of the Lord, in the presence of the consciousness, in the presence of the pure existence principle, the body, mind gets activated. So there are 2 types of activators. Remember this very well, because this is a very important understanding of our whole cosmos. One is, there is something which by presence only it can bless. It can bless and it can activate. 2 examples are given by Shankaracharya in the Bhashyam. One example is sunlight. In the presence of sunlight, all the human beings, they wake up. and they start acting, which we all know. In the night time, when the sun is not experienced, we all go to sleep. The body, sense organs, mind, they all rest. So in the presence, sannidhi matrena, this is a Sanskrit word used for in the presence of. In the presence of the sun, all human minds wake up and they do transactions, and then in the night time they all go to sleep. They become passive. This is one example given by Shankaracharya in the Bhashyam. The second example he gives in the Bhashyam is a magnet. A magnet, when in the presence of the magnet, the iron filings will come and get attracted. The magnet does not give an invitation, come, 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 but it gets attracted in the presence. So in the presence of Ishitam means that in the presence of Atma, the entire universe gets into manifest situation and also gets into unmanifest situation. This is the first step of study. There is Atma. Don't doubt about it. My sense organs are limited. I cannot see Atma, I cannot hear Atma, I cannot perceive Atma through my mind or through the body, through the sense organs. But it exists. The second lesson is that in the presence of Atma, the entire cosmos functions. Therefore, what is the third step in study? The sense organs, the mind, the inert world, they borrow consciousness and become manifest. They give up consciousness, they become unmanifest. So sense organs, the mind, many people ask me the question, what is this reflected consciousness? Here is the answer. Mind has the capacity to reflect that consciousness and also to give away that consciousness. Borrow that consciousness and give away the consciousness. Borrow the consciousness during the waking state, give up during the sleep state. Borrow again, give up. This is the nature of the subtle body. The gross body cannot do that. That is why in a dead body, you will find the dead body is there, but there is no consciousness illumining that dead body. The pranas have left. Which pranas have left means what? The pancha pranas have left. There is no more prana in the dead body. There is no more indriyas functioning. The indriyas have left. Bhagavad Gita beautifully says in the 15th chapter, Manashashtani indriyani cha. The subtle body leaves with the 5 jnana indriyas, karma indriyas, manaha, all this they leave. And then what we see is only the gross body. In the gross body, there is no consciousness reflected. That is the difference between a live body and a dead body. And that is how you should discriminate between the wall and my mind. In a living being, the mind is the reflecting medium. In a wall, there is no reflecting medium. So wall is insentient, inert. A table, a stone is insentient, inert. It has no subtle body. It has only gross body, tamas. Whereas human beings have a subtle body. Okay, I digressed a little bit to explain the Shankara Bhashyam. But anyway, coming back here. So the scriptures, they all discuss this eternal nature of Atma. And the ephemeral nature of the matter principle, which is made up, which is this body and mind. The moment I learn to give up this ego, the I, which is connected to the mind, then what happens? I discover the real I in this body, which is called as Shivoham. This is what I said last week. Shivaratri is nothing but it is the giving up of the ego and being one with that spiritual essence in the entire cosmos, which is called as the Lord Shiva. Auspicious, most auspicious principle in this entire universe. Pure in nature. It has nothing in it except itself. Advaita Swarupaha. So the Guru turns the gaze of the student from his sense organs and mind towards this shining Shivaha in his own body-mind complex. That is the job of a Guru. And the Guru should be Shrotriyaha. Shrotriya means he must have studied the Upanishads. Brahmanishtaha. He must know that there is Brahman in this world and it exists. He knows the nature of Brahman. See, the nature of Brahman is known only through the Upanishads. Each Upanishad will give you a little bit, it will give you a jigsaw, it will give you some idea about this Brahman. It will give you some idea about this Atma. So your mind will then get some glimpse of this Atma by the study of Upanishads. As you study the next Upanishad, again you will get some darkness in your mind will go away. So a teacher is Shrotriya Brahmanishta. Well versed in scriptures in big cities like Benares, you will find many saints who are well versed in the Shastra. And then when you go to the Himalayas, you will find experienced, that means people who have experienced Brahman in their own life. They are all there in the Himalayas. They have full awareness of the self, full awareness of this Atma. What is the substratum behind the whole universe? They are fully aware. They know the nature. They have studied the scriptures. They have known, and they have known the nature in themselves. That is what is called as Brahmanishta. So all Upanishads say, go and learn from a Guru who is a Brahma, who is a Shrotriya and a Brahmanishta. In one of the commentaries, Gurudev says, he asked his Guru, Guru means Swami Chinmayananda, he asked his Guru, it seems, can the mind be stopped and truth be realized? Because, he was thinking it's my mind which is the problem. Then the Guru said, to climb the spiritual ladder, the mind and intellect has to first become fit. You cannot give it up. It cannot be stopped. There is nothing, you cannot, by any means, you cannot stop the mind, but you have to make it more fit. And that is why we enter into the spiritual study. We all become a bhakta. We start seeing Shiva, the auspicious nature of the Lord, which is consciousness principle. The same Shiva, the bhakta starts seeing in his own Guru. The disciple starts seeing no faults in his Guru, but as that pure consciousness principle, which is behind the body-mind complex and the universe. And it is the guru who invokes the feeling of faith and devotion in a student. There is something. Don't ever question that existence of that principle. There is a principle. Go with full faith. That is what makes a sadhaka a siddha purusha. With inner purity, that means you learn more and more about the pure nature of the mind, which is the reflected consciousness, and then become free from the identification with the body or mind as me. So to a real Vedantin, a spiritual student, the real guru is who? It is the pure intellect within him. Because as you clear your doubts, your intellect becomes purer and purer. That is the meaning of purification. When your doubts go away about the world, about the body, about the sense organs, like how you're learning today, for example, that the sense organs don't have the light of consciousness intrinsically in themselves, but they borrow that from an external entity, which is called as Atma. So our own self-effort pushes us into the direction of the self-study. The Guru teaches us the eternal law of this universe and then reveals this Chaitanya principle. Once we are aware of this consciousness in us, there is no other, it never goes away from us, because anytime you're awake, you are conscious. And you are with consciousness, you are the consciousness principle. It is the vital dynamic force behind the mind. It makes the mind active, and that is what you are in your sleep state. You don't have sleep. The sleep state belongs to the mind, but you are always conscious of the body, mind, and the world, or of the absence of the body, mind, world. You are conscious of both. That is what is called as Sakshi. This the Guru teaches us. Subconsciously, we all come to know that we are this principle. It becomes very deep rooted in my subconscious mind, and that gives me complete fulfillment in life. It is not something new. It is existing. It is always there. So freedom from this body-mind complex is nothing new, but it is our nature. The Guru tells us that it is your nature. Nature means what? I go back to it every day. But I don't know this. It is only the Shastra which illumines this knowledge that I am of this nature. Nobody can take this consciousness away from me. It is my own nature. When I give up this identification of the body, mind in a particular state, I am with my own pure nature. That is what Mandukya Upanishad also says. Turiyam is your nature. When you give up this body, it is an automatic process which is happening in the world. I only become a Sakshi to this process, and I become free. So what do I need? I need a pure mind. Because our mind is not pure, it has raga dvesha, it loses the peace, and it goes into the world and gets caught up. The Guru teaches us there is this inner principle. Hold on to that principle, and you will realize the ultimate truth. Okay, so that was the first verse of the month of the Keno Upanishad. Next week, we will take up the second verse. It's a very, very brilliant Upanishad, because It teaches us directly how I can experience this consciousness. I am that consciousness, but my knowledge about that is not there. Upanishadic study helps me to remove the veiling, the ignorance about this Atma. Okay, so we will stop here and then pick up the second verse next week. And if you have any questions, you can dwell upon the first verse itself. This is a very beautiful verse. I have taken a small meditation last week in my Wednesday class on this particular verse, the verse 1 of the Keno Upanishad. You can go to the website and you can get you can download the meditation on this verse. The meditation on the Keno Upanishadic mantras 1 and 2 is a direct realization of yourself. There is nothing. You just have to let your mind go in this direction of the thought process. Automatically, you reach the core of your personality and say, I am that Sakshi. It is not to convince anybody else in the world, not to even teach others. It is only my own realization of my own nature. There's a lot of fulfillment in this study or in this spiritual study. You cannot express it. Slowly it happens. You see, it's like the flower, a bud. Slowly it becomes a flower. A bud in the night, you see it. And then next day morning, it becomes a jasmine flower, fragrant. Similarly, our mind becomes fragrant with this knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Once that fragrance is received by the mind, it will never go away. It will always remain fragrant. It will always remain enlightened. That enlightenment is what all the spiritual seekers are waiting to receive, that bliss of knowledge from only one source. The source is only Upanishads. It is the study of this Upanishads which peels layer by layer each kosha, each body, and then shows the inner essence in all of us. It exists all the time. It is the only immortal entity in the whole universe. Immortal. Keep remembering that immortal entity as Sakshi. Sakshi. It's a very important word in Vedanta. And what this Sakshi is, how it is the entire study. With this, I will stop. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. I'll see if there's anything in the chat box. How we can prove that mind can reflect consciousness? Through Shraddha, we should understand that mind reflects consciousness, or is there any logic available to prove this? Okay, so the first question I have here is from Manikandan. See, in Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya gives the answer of why the mind is not Atma. Why the mind doesn't have its own consciousness. Very simple example. To prove that the mind doesn't have its own consciousness. First of all, we should remember that in the waking state, we are with the mind. Active mind. This active mind means what? It helps the senses to perceive the color and form. The mind helps the sense organs to perceive sound, loud sound, dim sound, bright nature of an object, dull nature, different colors. All these are all what? It is the sense objects coming into the mind in a vritti form. Vritti means thought form. Sound comes in a vritti form, in the mind, and I, the individual, experience it. So the first thing you should understand is everything, all the five sense organs, they bring vrittis, thoughts into the mind, and I am experiencing this and as my experiences. My experiences is different. For example, somebody in another city, another part of the city is experiencing another portion of the world. Therefore, his mind, his sense organs are bringing his thoughts and he is experiencing a different world. So the minds are different in each body. Sense organs, eyes are made up of the same five elements. But the mind makes it different. So the first lesson you should learn is that it is the mind which is active in the waking state. Step number one. Step number two is what? What happens to me in the sleep state? Is this mind having consciousness in the sleep state? Is it borrowing consciousness from Atma in the sleep state? In the sleep state, what happens is the mind stops borrowing. When the mind stops borrowing, that is called as sleep state. We all say that I went to sleep, but what happens in sleep? Vedanta analyzes this beautifully. Dakshinamurti Stotram is the analysis of this. And so in the sleep state, what happens? The mind has stopped borrowing some consciousness from some principle, and therefore it has become almost inert. It does not reflect consciousness in the sleep state. So there is, what is this reflection of consciousness? Now you will know. There is what, like for example, there is sunlight. A mirror is there. That mirror, when the sun is there, the mirror is getting reflected. The sun is getting reflected in the mirror. When you remove, when the mirror is gone, when the mirror is removed, what happens? The sunlight is not reflected. Similarly, our mind. Sunlight is always there. Atma is always there. Consciousness is always there. But what happens to me, the mind and the body? Mind stops. When the mind stops, what happens? The energy of the mind flowing through the sense organs stops. That is what is called as the reflection of consciousness. In the waking state, reflection is there. In the sleep state, there is no reflection. When there is no reflection, I don't experience the world. So there is some external factor behind the mind, behind the sense organs, which is the Atma. And how do I know this Atma? Not with the help of sense organs, because sense organs, they depend, they borrow. The lender is Atma, lender is an inferred entity. This will be explained more in the second verse, but I have given you the gist of this answer. Shankaracharya's Bhashyam, when you go through the second verse and go through the Bhashyam of that verse, the commentary of that verse, This particular point is very clear. But I've explained to you in a small way. I'm sure you have understood that. Somebody has replied to that. Through Shraddha, we should understand that mind reflects consciousness, or is there any logic available to prove this? Yeah, this is the same question which has been answered. The logic is our experience and also knowing the nature of the mind, that is a play of vrittis, that we get to know only from the Veda. Veda teaches us the nature of the sense organs, it is inert. Nature of the mind, it is inert. Tattvabodha clearly says, what is the mind made of? Mind is made up of these subtle elements. The sattvic nature of all the 5 elements put together is the mind. The rajoguna of all the 5 elements put together is the prana. Tattvabodha, go back, you will learn this. Okay, so mind is nothing but it is a reflecting material. Consciousness is the Atma. Very, very important factor. You have asked a very brilliant question because it's a very subtle question. But answer is there in the Veda. Vivek Chudamani, we go through that, you will find there are certain portions where Shankaracharya says why the body is not Atma, why the sense organs is not Atma, why the mind is not Atma. Even in Panchadasi, I have covered this in some portions. In chapter 1 and 2 of Panchadasi, which I have not taken so far, this is discussed. Whether the original consciousness, this is the next question from Vibhuti Narayan, whether the original consciousness reflected on the elements various jnana indriyas, the senses of the mind. Yes. The original consciousness through the mind illumines the jnana indriyas. Again, take the example of the sleep state. In the sleep state, the sense organs are not active. Why? Because the mind is not active. But consciousness is there or not? Original consciousness is always there. It is never lost. I am that consciousness. I am that pure consciousness. The entire Vedantic study is to understand this process which is happening to us daily. I am always, for example, Vedanta Upanishad says, you are that consciousness in that sleep state, pure consciousness. And who are you in the waking state? You are the reflected consciousness. Mind has already got borrowed consciousness from Atma in the waking state. With the help of borrowed consciousness, the sense organs are active. I am seeing the world. I'm experiencing the world. But why is all this happening? Because of the law of karma, karma kanda portion. Very easy now. You have understood karma kanda. You are able to link up with the jnana kanda. In the jnana kanda, you come out and understand this nature of Atma and Anatma. Okay, very good. Thank you. In case you have any further, Manikandan says, okay, he has understood. In case you have anything, Vibhuti, anything else you want to say about this? If you have understood, it's fine. Otherwise, okay, you have replied, it's okay. Okay, now Shanmugam is unmuting everybody. So each one can unmute yourself. And if you have any questions, you can ask. Yeah, Bharat, you want to ask something?
Secretary, I have one question, means continuation of that.
Yeah, yeah.
When we say that the mind is borrowing the consciousness from the original Atma, Atma itself is projecting this waking world, the sleeping world, and the dream world. Am I right? This Atma itself is projecting the three world, like sleeping,
Yeah, see,
dreaming.
it is not okay. There are two ways to look at it. When you look at it from Atma angle, it is not projecting anything because it is independent by nature. It can exist independently. When you look at it from the world angle, from the mind angle, from the body angle, from the sense organs angle, you can say that it is Atma which is projecting through the mind.
Through the mind.
Yes, always remember, moon doesn't have lights or a light of its own. Moon is jadam. Moon is inert by itself. The sunlight gets reflected in the moon, and then I experience the moonlight. So experience of the moonlight in the waking state, or experience of moonlight does not it does not disturb my knowledge that it is the sun which is reflected on the moon. Similarly, when I am in the waking state, my experience of the world is with the mind.
Okay.
But during this experience, I have to remember that the real experiencer, or what makes this mind experience the world, is Atma.
Very good.
That is why in the second verse of this Keno Upanishad, it says it is the mind of the mind. Atma is the mind of the mind. Without Atma, the mind itself will be jadam. It will not be even called as the mind. It will just be a subtle body. It will like the dead body, like a dead five elements. It is the ear of the ear. Ear of the ear means what? Atma is the ear. It is called the ear of the ear. Why? Because it is behind the ears. It is the mind of the mind, eye of the eye, ear of the ear, prana of the prana. Without the consciousness, there is nothing called as prana. See, what we have to understand is that is why here in the first verse itself, I'm introducing that concept called as blessing. You must understand, blessing means in the presence of. In the presence of the sun, activity goes on in the world. In the presence of Atma, activity goes on in all the minds, all the sense organs. That is the nature of Atma. You should never forget Atma's existence, and it is there in its presence. I am that Atma, I am that Sakshi, I am that pure Atma. Not this reflected Atma with the mind and the sense organs. If you have understood this, you have understood the entire Keno Upanishad. Finished. You don't need any more knowledge of all 34 verses. The first verse and the second verse are comprehensive in this study of Keno Upanishad. It gives out the essence of the entire 34 verses. And that comes through the study of this commentary, the brilliant commentary of Shankaracharya. It says, why is it called the mind of the mind? Because by itself, the ear cannot hear. The ear borrows consciousness from some entity which is not a part of the ear. See, this will be explained in the second verse. Consciousness is not a part of the body. It is not the property of the body. It is not a product of the body. It is an independent entity which gives life to the mind and the sense organs. Very deep study is there in this Keno Upanishad. When you understand it in this way, you will understand Atma very clearly. That's the beauty of Keno Upanishad. Through our experience itself, the teacher says and gives an answer. It is the mind of the mind. Mind is inert by nature. And there are 3-4 steps involved in the analysis, in the logical analysis of why the mind is inert by nature. It doesn't have consciousness. Consciousness is not a property. It is not, if it was the property, what would have happened? It would have become jada. That is what Shankaracharya says in his commentary. He says, suppose consciousness is a part of this mind, it would be inert by nature. It will be jada because it is only a reflection. Anyway, those are all analysis, but if you want deeper analysis of why the mind doesn't have consciousness of its own, Vivek Chudamani, you go through some of those verses.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to make my understanding clear.
Yes.
This means it is in the waking state, to understand the Atma is activating our mind. We need to go to the dream state. In dream, if we know that I am not the dreamer, that mind is projecting and I am experiencing this dream.
Yes.
If I come to know that knowledge, I becomes free from the joys and sorrows of the dream.
Exactly. Yes.
Similarly, in the waking stage also, if we know that I am just experiencing this body and mind because of the karma, and
yes.
And this mind is activating because of the Atma. So if I realize that true nature is that I am the Atma, then I can be free from this.
Absolutely, you have hit the nail. You've got exactly what the Upanishad wants you to learn. You compare your experience in the dream state, compare your experience in the waking state, compare your experience in the sleep state also. When you analyze all the 3 states, then only you will come to Atma. The nature of Atma is clearly understood when you go through these 3 states in your own mind. In your own mind, just think of it. Oh, what was in the dream state? There was some light in which I saw the dream. That light is permanent. It is always there. Today also, night also, I will dream something. That light will illumine. So there is some light principle which is there in the dream. Same light principle, Mandukya Upanishad says, it is the same light principle which is there in waking, through which my mind is again experiencing another set of experiences. Then Mandukya Upanishad says that sleep state. In the sleep state, what happens? This whole universe of the waking becomes unmanifest. So there is a manifest state, which I call it waking. There is an unmanifest state, which I call it sleep. But in the sleep state also, there is some Sakshi principle, there is some Atma principle, which is saying that there was no world. That is why in the waking state, when I get up early in the morning, I say, I had a good sleep. There was no world at that time. But who is illumining, unless you have been present in that state as the illuminator of that sleep state, nobody will say, my sleep was good. We all remember that only because of the Sakshi principle, of that light. So there is a light in the dream state, there is a light in the waking state, there is a light in the sleep state. That light is called as Atma. And that light is the activator of the mind. Through the actions of the mind, the sense organs get activated. Good, very good.
Thank you, Sriraji.
Thank you. Anybody else has any other question? Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll see in the next week. We'll take up the second verse of Keno Upanishad. So go through each of these verses one by one, one by one. Don't miss these verses because they are all linked to each other. See, suppose you don't understand the question and you come straight away to the second answer, you will not enjoy the answer. So continuous study. Suppose you miss one session, I am circulating the audio video through the WhatsApp. You listen to it before the next class, so that you are in touch with what has happened in the first session, second session. Now we are going to go verse after verse. I'm going to go through 34 verses. We have finished the first verse. There are 33 verses. I'm going to go through step by step. And as we learn, you can ask your questions and get your doubts clear. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Good night, Sriraji.
Goodbye.
No.
Bye-bye.